Hey folks, Brendan from Bluelight here, back with you with another video, another podcast that's going to help support you in your recruitment journey. Or if you're a serving officer, this one's for you as well, because this will help you if you have an interview ahead of you for a specialist role or a transfer position, or if you are going for a promotion. And what we're going to look at is the one type of question which I know is confusing so many of you, the forward-facing question. Tell you what that is in a moment. Actually, no, I'll tell you what it is now. This is a sort of question where it'll ask you, how would you deal with, or how as a sergeant in the future would you create an environment where it is inclusive of all people, or a culture of performance, or a culture of creativity. The transfer one or specialist interview might be, here's an example actually that occurred the other day with one of my clients. How will you as a road policing officer ensure you are tackling issues that matter locally in a local area? And for those of you in the recruitment process, questions like how would you deal with an inappropriate comment made by your sergeant? Or how would you go about managing a scenario where members of the community in a small local area were really upset with the police and the lack of action that they're taking in respect of crime and antisocial behaviour, or the perceived lack of action. So those are the sort of forward-facing questions. How would you in the future deal with? And they are throwing all of you. I know this because I support you. I'm there with you on the weekly webinars. And if you want to find out more about those weekly webinars, just check the links below. Whether you are a serving police officer, it's the Enforce Advancement Group, £3.33 a month. To join that, it's less than a cup of coffee. My goodness, it's a gift. Where you're going to get a course on how to manage interviews, boards, and also access to a weekly webinar where we practice, and well over a year's worth of recordings of webinars. If you're a potential recruit, then it's the interview course with webinars option. Again, I think it's about 2 years worth of recordings of webinars you can access, a weekly practice webinar where you can actually practice with me, and an online course. There's so much there for you, and that's the reason why I guarantee that you're going to pass and get through that stage. I'm all in on this journey with you. If you do all the work and you don't pass, then you get a full refund. And I'm so confident that you're going to love it, that if within the first 24 hours of you purchasing any of these services, you decide they're not for me, then just drop me a line and I'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. Come and join me. And if you like or love what you're hearing or watching, then please do like and subscribe so you get more of these videos, more of these podcasts in the future. Anyway, let's get stuck in, folks. Let's look at the 3 different ways of answering those forward-facing questions. Excuse me. Starting with, for those of you who are potential recruits, how would you deal with a scenario where someone made an inappropriate comment? There's 3 stages to a forward-facing answer. And this is something that myself and officers in the Enforce Advancement Group came up with. So I'm not going to claim credit to this. It's based on the Sinex circles. And I think it's a really good way of framing your answer. It's worked for hundreds of people so far, hundreds, since forward-facing questions started to become vogue again. So the first thing we do is we describe why it's so important that we challenge inappropriate behaviour. And there's so many different avenues you can go down in respect of that and deliver a really good solid 2 minutes worth of why this is so important. From there, what I'd do is I'd actually pick up an example or make up an example. So if you want to find examples of inappropriate behaviour within your force, all you need to do, the force you're applying to, all you need to do is go to Google, put the name of your force in, and just add the word misconduct into a Google search, and it'll bring up a raft of previous misconduct hearings, and in those there'll be an example. I guarantee it for every force. There'll be an example of where someone has used inappropriate behaviour, inappropriate language. And for every case that involves inappropriate behaviour or language, someone must have reported it. Someone's witnessed it and someone's reported it. That individual has demonstrated integrity, professionalism, they're doing the right thing in difficult or challenging circumstances, even when they didn't have to do so. they are acting within the code of ethics and acting within the standards that would be required by members of the public in terms of what they would want police officers to do. So, excuse me, what you're going to do in this part is you're going to describe how you would go about dealing with that. And there's various techniques that we utilize. There's one framework that works just perfectly. It's a non-contact conflict management model from the police, and it works brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. So we've just done that in a recent webinar, and for those of you who are watching this thinking, I want to watch that webinar, it's a client who failed actually their interview on this answer. They failed the interview on this answer, and now they are kicking themselves thinking, oh, if only I'd come and joined this course beforehand. Anyway, they're going to another force for an interview, and that other force asks questions like that as well. So they're going to nail it this time. They're going to nail it. So once we've described how we're going to actually deal with it, then we end it with what this will result in. So if we do demonstrate these behaviours, what will it result in terms of the force and how the force is perceived? So, so far so good. That's for potential recruits. Now let's look at a transferee. Now, a transferee or a specialist interview. How will you, let's look at this example. How will you, as a road policing officer, ensure that you are tackling the issues that matter at a local level? So my client actually had this question and we'd already prepared for it. It was someone I was doing some one-to-one work with. Same model. Why it's important for the road policing unit to be involved in partnering with local neighbourhood teams. And he talked about it from the perspective of why it's important at the force level to a local level, how it sat within the force priorities, and how it sat within the sort of strategic plan for the road policing unit. So he nailed that bit. The feedback was just awesome. He came back and told me what the interviewers said, and they loved that bit. They just loved it. So then he used an example, and this is the important part. This is the bulk of your answer. It's the how. Okay, so that first part's the why, then we've got the how. And we did a lot of work on making sure that this answer was just going to nail everything on whatever marking guide was in front of him. It was going to nail it. And so he actually utilised, he gave an example of something that he's actually done as a response officer. And I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but we honed it, and he used it on a day. They actually stopped him at that pit and said, it's okay, we've heard enough. And he said, no, but I need to tell you what the result would be and what the result actually was in terms of confidence from the community, the relationship between myself on response and the neighbourhood team. And what he said was, no, it's okay, we don't need to hear any more. And he was really insistent, saying, but I'd really like to share it with you. And they just came back and said, no, stop. And the reason why they're stopping him, they told him after, is he'd told them more than enough. He'd scored way off the chart on the marking guide in his answer. So he didn't need to tell him anymore. And that will happen in some interviews. They'll stop you and just say, right, we've heard enough, thank you. If they say that, it means that your answer's awesome. And he was quite insistent. It was quite funny to listen to what he was saying about how they were trying to tell him stop, and he was like, no, I want to tell you more. No, stop, no. So we don't need to hear any more. But he wanted to finish off the model. So again, why, how, what? And like I said, if you're familiar with the Sinex circles, you'll get exactly what I'm talking about. Excuse me. Right, over to promotion. Slightly different. How will you in the future create a culture of performance? How in the future will you create an environment on your team where people feel included? Or it may be something else around diversity, equality and inclusion. But I think there are going to be around that, diversity, equality and inclusion, an ethical approach, a performance approach. How are you going to manage a performance approach, or how are you going to introduce a performance approach on your team? They're mostly questions like that. So you can't just give one thing. Again, first of all, why is it important? So you've got to talk about that. And if you're going for inspector, then they'd want something that's more strategic in terms of why it's important, or above. You know, the more higher up you go, the more strategic your response needs to be in terms of the why. Now, what happens next, generally, with my clients is they then start delivering a shopping list of all the things that they're going to do. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it's just a big shopping list of vague claims and statements. And quite honestly, when we debrief it, they've already worked out that it's fairly meaningless and vague and cliched, and it's just not going to get big marks. So what we do is we look at three really specific things that you're going to introduce and do, or enable others to do, that are going to really nail it in terms of that answer. So you're describing how you're going to do three specific things. Forget the big shopping list, 3 things. You could even just do 2, but I wouldn't do 1. I'd do 2. 2, my preference would be for 3. And then at the end of it, again, the same thing. What will this result in? Once these things are introduced, once these things are embedded within the team, or you've built upon the things that already exist in the team where these things are being done already, let's not presume that you're going to take over a team that's dysfunctional. You might take over an awesome team that's absolutely amazing, that may be doing a lot of the things that you'd introduce as those 3 things unconsciously almost. They're unconsciously competent at what they do. But still, you'd need to talk about how you'd enhance that ability that the team has. But ultimately, at the very end, you're talking about what that's going to result in. What's it going to result in? And there's different levels of what you can describe there. But of course, throughout all of this, I've given you some teasers, haven't I? But this is 12 minutes in now. Different levels, different approaches, different models. Look, this would be a 2-hour-long video or podcast if I went into all of that kind of detail. Where to get that detail? I'm going to be really frank with you here. Check the links below. Come and join the webinars. Come and join those courses. If they're not for you, within 24 hours, let me know. I'll give you a refund. That's it. No questions asked. Because I've only done that once over the past year. And if you fail and you've done all the work I've asked of you, then again, the same guarantee. You get a full refund. I can't say fairer than that, can I? Because I want you to pass. The thing that I love, every day I get this. I get messages from people saying, I've passed, I couldn't have done it without you. It's amazing, I've got through everything first time. I've been promoted, I've achieved my dream. You know, what an amazing job I've got. It's just brilliant, that, isn't it? How brilliant is that I can help to support people with my 26 years worth of experience of doing this kind of thing. 26 years, eh? Wow. 37 years in the police sector, 26 years of doing this. Goodness. Anyway, come and join us. Come and join us. You will so not regret it. I absolutely promise you. All right, folks. I shall look forward to seeing you on one of those webinars then, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye for now.